I feel pretty good.
You look good. You feel good. This is good. All right. Look, cheers, bro.
Yeah, I had a big fat nap. Yeah, I don't have anything to drink today.
Oh, I had a nap too, but it was so early. I feel tired again.
Yeah. Well, the time change this time we fell back, and you'd think you'd be okay with that, but it
No,
always messes me up.
I'm messed up.
And so I've been waking up earlier and earlier, and today I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and I couldn't go
Oh,
back to sleep.
yeah, that's bad.
So by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm falling asleep at my desk.
That sucks.
And yeah, so I bagged it. I pieced out from a meeting and I went and took a nap. Me and the cat.
Love it, man.
Yeah. So, that's what you do in your 50s when you work from home. You take a nap whenever you want to.
Yep. And they're taking that away from us 2 days a week. We have to go in the office. I'm like, are you going to give me a nap space?
Yeah.
A place to lay my head for a couple hours?
Oh, dude. And no lie, true story. When I used to have to commute 100 miles north, God, I hope my CEO doesn't listen to this. When I used to have to commute 100 miles north to go to the office once or twice a week, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd sneak off. There was this one place in a common area on our floor that was like around a corner and in a little alcove, and there was a comfy chair there.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, I would drop out. Didn't take a lunch break, so I would go over there for like 45 minutes.
Love it.
And just zonk out.
I love it.
Hoped I wouldn't attract any attention with my snoring. But anyways, that's not what people came here to listen to.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
People are here to listen to Different Strings, a guitar podcast. And that's what we're here to do, because it's time to welcome everybody out there in podcast land, because we are back with another episode of our guitar adjacent podcast called Different Strings. I'm your host, Wes, and here with me, as always, is Garth. My good friend Andrew.
Oh,
I did. I just waned you, man. Say hello to everybody, Andrew. Everybody literally in the whole world.
Hello, world.
That was nice. So our topic this week is a Different Strings grab bag. Some people might call it a potpourri. You might call it an oleo if you're from the southern United States and your grandmother is still around. But basically, well, we'll get into that because we got housekeeping to take care of first. And first, please, Andrew, tell everybody where they can find us on the internet, because that is absolutely the most important part. That's okay. You go ahead and cut me off.
No,
man.
it's okay. If you're interested in a Different Strings a guitar podcast, as you're wont to say,
don't forget the colon.
Don't forget the colon. Then you need to find us at www.differentstringspodcast.com. And on that website, you'll find blog posts, links to past episodes, ramblings, musings, and other goodies as we continue to build our guitar adjacent empire.
Yeah. You remember that show called My Name is Earl?
Yes, Jason Lee, right?
Yeah, Jason Lee. And I forget the guy that played his younger brother who was in the show was a moron, but he was reading something and there was a colon in it, and he said high dot low dot, and I nearly lost my mind. I nearly lost my mind.
High dot low dot, a guitar adjacent podcast. I love it.
So today's episode, or today's episode, depending on when you're listening to it, because I recognize that people might listen to this during the daylight hours, of which, after the time change, it seems there are precious few. I was doing good, man. I was waking up, and then the sun would come up, and now I wake up and the sun's been up for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours already, and I missed most of it.
So, Regale, you're a history professor, no?
Sure, I am.
Okay. So in my lizard brain, that means you know everything about everything. Because
I know a good bit about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
You know what? Just now, what just happened? That just passed. It's now history.
That's right.
Right. We live in the present. So do you know the history? I don't. I'm not asking as a posit question. I'm saying, do you know the history behind daylight savings time and why we are forced to endure this ridiculousness?
I know a little bit about it because I've I've just never gotten into it that much. It had to do with World War One and all of the um, austerity measures that the United States undertook, and to save energy and promote production, they used daylight saving time.
Okay. Is
And
there
then
a
after
place
the
in modern society for this?
no, there really isn't. And all it seems to do, it's not the change back and forth. It used to be about even. It was about 6 months each, and then they made it so that daylight standard time now runs from the beginning of November to the beginning of March, which is not 6 months, and it's close. It's 5 months. And then daylight saving time, and you're allowed to ridicule anybody who says savings, because the legal term is saving. It's written into, our legal system. Um, Runs the rest of the year. And I just think it's stupid to switch back and forth. Some states like Arizona doesn't switch.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, yeah, we're not doing that. They basically just switch time zones. They go from Pacific to Mountain, and they're just like, okay, this is what we call ourselves now. And their clocks never change, which I think is glorious. And whoever came up with that idea in Arizona, I hope they got a raise, because just switching back and forth is stupid. Pick a time and stick with it. You don't need to do all this switching around.
I think it's asinine. It's painful. It serves no purpose in a modern society. And by the way, that's the first time I've ever heard an explanation that involved World War One. I
Yeah, and
keep
they ended it after the war was over, and they brought it back in World War II, and then it kind of had a little spotty thing, and it's been only in the last 20 or 25 years that it's become like a permanent thing, a permanent stupid thing.
yeah, I mean, is there literally a benefit to this? No, there's no. It's just all right. I said I wasn't going to be spicy this week, and yet here I am about to rant on
I think
DST.
I think you asked a legit question, and I wish I knew more to give you a better explanation. But there's a lot of apocryphal garbage information out there about it. It's for the kids. It's for this. It's for that. It's for farmers. It was a wartime thing,
Right.
is
This is
how
what
it
I
got started.
every time I ask someone what it's about, I get a different answer. Right. And I trust you, and what you said makes the most sense. But the things I hear about it's for the kids, it's for farm. I'm like, this is not in modern society. Is it necessary? It's
Yeah.
just painful, and I think we need to grow up as a country at this point.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Um,
Talk about a
so
grab bag.
Yeah. And speaking of history, let me give you a little bit, you listeners out there, a little bit of history on where this came from. So a couple years ago, probably more than a couple years, to be perfectly honest, I had an idea for a podcast that never really came to fruition, but it was going to be essentially the piece that Andrew and I do called Music That Matters. That was my whole idea for a podcast. And I was going to get a group of my heavy metal buddies, and we were going to have a little rotating panel of 2 or 3 or 4 people every week
Mhm.
that did this. And then at the end of that, I was going to throw out a random question that we could fight about. And so to that end, we came up with a bunch of random questions that we could ask each other that would cause some strife, or at least some discussion. And I showed Andrew that list, and he thought that would be a great idea to pull from for an
So good.
episode, to just grab and go.
There are so many good questions slash topic ideas on here. Not some that probably could fuel an entire episode if we really get into it, but there were some that were just so chef's kiss beautiful that I thought there's no way we can't bring these. And I, rather than do them one at a time in an episode, which is good enough, I thought, man, do you imagine just a whole episode of nothing but just rapid fire
Yeah.
funny questions about, and some not so funny, but some that just have a really good backstory. And again, with your knowledge of some of these things, I think it could I think a good discussion is going to happen. So, or at
Yeah,
least I
and
hope so.
we encourage everybody to comment and tell us what their answer to this question would be, especially some of the cool ones about the most this, the best that, the least this, the worst that.
Mhm.
Um, give us your comments. We want to hear from you. And who knows, if one particular topic starts to develop a longer thread, we may turn that into a full episode.
Yeah. As I tell my son frequently, please tell me how wrong I am in the comments
Exactly.
below. Just tell me,
Tell me how wrong I am. There
please
you
tell
go.
me how wrong I am, and let's get into it. All right.
So
So, how do you want to do this, man?
why don't we kick off by what, since I made up most of the questions, why don't you
Hmm.
ask the questions, and after you ask the question, I'll decide if I want you to go first or not.
Okay. All right. So,
And
again,
that's probably going to determine on how hammered you get as the evening
all
progresses.
right. So, we're not doing a commercial, but there is a very delightful whiskey next to me, and it's been a week, as I told you, and I needed to relax, and I'm going to relax.
And this is how adults that don't smoke weed relax.
It is,
Plus,
although
you're on vacation. It's not like you got to get up and go to work in the morning.
that is true. I am on vacation this week. So, all right, first question out of the gate, and I expect there'll be some discussion, but healthy discussion, because you can't debate opinion. It is what it is, right?
Well, I'm right.
All right, listen. If we're gonna have to start talking Telecasters being good guitars, all right. Wait, I listened to that episode, by the way,
Yeah.
where you told me how right you were about EMGs being garbage pickups and Telecasters being nothing but tabletops.
Uh-huh.
And it's been a few weeks, and now that the anger and bile has subsided, it's some of the funniest stuff, man. All right, sorry for the self-congratulatory comments, but
That's all right. That was a fun episode.
it was fun. I enjoyed doing it with you. Okay, so Wes, I'd like to know, in your esteemed opinion,
Well, thank
best
you.
rock album and best metal. I'm sorry, best debut rock album and best metal debut album.
I'm glad you split that up, because a lot of times rock and metal get lumped together, and I know
Unfairly.
well, and I think sometimes it's fair and sometimes it's a pain in the ass, right? Because AC/DC is not a heavy metal band.
No.
Right. AC/DC is a rock band, a hard rock
Yes.
band for sure, but they're not a heavy metal band.
Right.
And I think that might be the one thing that we can all agree on.
Ooh, this might be already a topic. How, where's the line between rock and metal? And I think anyone who plays guitar knows the answer to that. But if you're just a listener, where do you draw the when does rock become metal? When does metal become rock? I actually
Yeah.
think that would be a really interesting topic.
Yeah. Well, we may have to revisit that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have one for each, right?
Mhm.
So from a rock perspective, I think the best debut album, and of course this is in my lifetime or my awareness of music,
Mhm.
because you know uh, it would be easy to say Led Zeppelin 1, but I wasn't alive yet, you know so and that's an old album.
Fair enough.
And it would be easy to say, oh, Black Sabbath's first album was the greatest metal debut album, except, well, I don't actually believe that. It's a good album, but is it? Anyways, so for rock, I got to go with Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction,
Mm.
hands down. And I mean, and it's banger after banger. There, you don't get any crappy songs until side 2, and even then it's like one. Like I think, what is it, Out to Get Me, I think, is the only song that probably could have been left off that album.
And honestly, of all the songs on that, both I said side one, side two. Like, we listen, because
Well,
some of
yeah,
us still listen to things that
good
have
point.
side one and side two, but
Yeah,
even that's not really a bad song. Is it as
no, it's
good
not.
as the rest? Probably not, but still, like you said, man, one after another, and for a debut album,
Yeah,
I
and these
mean,
weren't it wasn't um like Kansas's debut album, or um I'm trying to think of another, or that band Live, where it was people that
Ooh.
had been playing together for a decade or more and really honing their craft. Guns N' Roses was a mix in the LA music scene in the 80s. People were changing bands like it was practically incestuous,
Mm.
you know, with all the band changes and people changing bands. So it's not like Guns N' Roses, the band, had been around for 10 or 12
No,
years.
in fact, the name Guns N' Roses came from
The
who the
two
original
bands
guitar
that most of the
player,
people had been in.
LA
Yeah.
Guns, right.
Yeah. And Axl Rose's band that was Rose something, I don't remember. But anyways, that album hit the rock scene like a bomb.
Oh
And
man.
so did the band. And they were so great with that initial, with that Appetite lineup, was so slinky and so fantastic. And
Uh-huh.
I don't think they've ever recaptured that magic.
No, but this you just pointed out something that I think really needs to be clarified. How many bands didn't survive grunge, right?
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses on the back of one album survived the entire grunge thing. I
Yeah.
mean, really, they did. That album, it just, people today, you hear Welcome to the Jungle all the time. Like,
Yeah.
it's just on the back of this one album. It's almost like they didn't even record the second thing that they did, that double. I don't know. That was nuts.
Use Your Illusion,
Yeah.
the two albums that should have been one.
It just, I mean, look, still, if you're a Guns N' Roses fan, I'm sure you love that album, but it did not come close. By the time they recorded that, there was already so much drama and
Yeah.
infighting in the band that you could tell that that album wasn't like, it was, they were trying to be Queen, they were trying to be Pink Floyd, they were like, we're bigger than just like bar rock. I'm like, do you have to be though? Like, can't you just really appreciate how good that first album was and just
Yeah.
make more of that? Because I really do feel like that album got them through the grunge phase and they survived it. Like,
Yeah.
people still talk about Slash like he just came out. That's a
Yeah.
really great pick for a debut album. That could a debut, man, bang,
Yeah.
multi-platinum.
Yeah. And it continues to sell year after year after year. People still buy that album. I
It's
think the
insanity.
last time I looked, it was like 12 million copies or something ridiculous like that. Um, Now from the metal side, on the metal side, most people who know me would assume I would go straight for Iron Maiden. But if you really listen to Iron Maiden's debut album, it's really more of a punk album,
Mm,
in my opinion.
mm,
With Paul Di'Anno, Steve Harris's songwriting was not refined yet. He hadn't really found his path. He was on it for sure. Dave Murray, of course, was in the band, but Adrian Smith was not.
mhm.
And so I don't think they really became a metal band until they had Bruce Dickinson.
Hmm.
And then they became a metal band, right? So I consider their first two albums primarily punk music, but
Okay.
that throws me forward. And I mentioned Black Sabbath earlier. Um, I don't think their first album is the greatest metal debut album ever, but I do think Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz is
Ooh.
the best metal debut album. And you know, we talk a lot about the legacy of Randy Rhoads. Unfortunately, he was killed young in a plane crash. He did not get much of an opportunity to disappoint us, right? So his
Right.
legacy lives on in those two albums, and some crappy demos from his Quiet Riot days. But what I always tell people is listen all the way to the end of Blizzard of Oz, because from my perspective, they put the best song besides Crazy Train at the end of the album. It's a song called Steal Away the Night,
Mhm,
and it is just an absolutely fantastic song. And I'm stunned that they put it at the end, although it does make a great closing song.
mhm,
It's so high energy, and the solo is so fantastic.
mhm.
And that album is, the songs on it are so good, I can overlook Randy Rhoads' terrible tone. And I'm a tone snob. A lot of albums, if there's bad guitar tone, I just won't listen to them.
Mm.
But I listen to Blizzard of Oz over and over and over.
I mean, it was unique. That guitar tone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we got to leave it at that because we don't
Yeah.
want to get too many hateful comments.
I
Which makes it your turn, sir.
well, you know, it's hard to argue that Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction was probably the one of the best rock debut albums
Yeah.
out there.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know last time we talked, I might have offered up a different opinion on that, but I don't know. It's I mean, I don't listen to it currently. It's not like something I continue to listen to. However, I listen to the crap out of it. Um I guess you don't I mean, do you consider Pearl Jam rock? I kind of do.
I do.
And if you do, I kind of think that 10 is probably up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're wrong because, I mean,
Put them on the map forever.
it didn't just put them on the map, right? It helped kickstart an entirely new genre of rock.
Yep.
And how many bands get to say they did that with their debut album,
Right. Their debut album out of the gate.
right?
Yeah.
And
Unbelievable.
they remain influential. I mean, I forget which guitar player it is. I think it's McCready. Just a couple months ago, got a signature Strat, like a mass production one, not
Yeah.
just a $28,000 custom shop limited run. He got a Mexican made signature Strat.
Yeah.
They
Like
made
part of
hundreds
the
of them.
lineup. Yep. Yep.
So that shows that their legacy remains. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but Fender is going after younger players
Usually.
with their SIGs and their stuff like that. And they've been debuting signature models from a rash of young and non-mainstream players.
Bruno Mars just got one. As of the
Really?
time of this record, as of the time of this recording, I just got an email or a text from them a couple days ago. Bruno Mars has a signature model. I kid you not. Wes is Googling it now.
Oh, you're right.
Mhm. Yeah.
$3,000 limited edition.
Not a guitar player. Not, I mean, not
I didn't.
someone
Yeah, I
I
was gonna say
think of.
I didn't know he played guitar.
Uh, Neither did I. See, I don't know Bruno Mars. They're clearly not going after you and me with that one.
Not for $3,000. They're not. That's more than the George Harrison Rosewood Telecaster was. That's
Oh no.
$100 more than the George Harrison. Oh, it's an ash body. I might have to pay attention to it. Hold
Oh
on. Is
boy.
it
How long ago did the George Harrison Telly come out?
end of 2020, I think?
I mean,
Early
are you
21?
adjusting for
No.
inflation?
21, 22. It was the winter of 21, 22.
Okay.
Adjusting for inflation, the George Harrison Telly probably cost more when it came out, but on paper, it's $100 less.
Right. And ash body, huh?
It's an American Ultra with a unique color, aged gold hardware, and a custom pickup set.
I'm not hearing anything that makes me want to go out and get it.
No. 2 single coils in the neck and middle and a noiseless bridge pickup. Why not make them all noiseless?
That's a whole discussion we don't have time for.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm going to close that. It is kind of a cool color though.
So
Like a coppery, looks like a penny.
I gave you my rock debut
Yes,
album.
you did. Pearl Jam 10. I no argument.
Okay. I'm going to give you, I think I gave you a weird one for metal, and I'm going to give it to you anyway. I'm going to go a little bit more current-ish.
Okay.
And
let me guess. Periphery.
Why, yes, Wes. It was Periphery, the debut album by Periphery. At the time that it came out, an instrumental album. Because also I'm not going to say that the Periphery album launched a genre. However, arguably, Periphery has done more to shape the progressive metal genre in the last
Yeah.
few years than any other band.
I will definitely give you that. And you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think coming out with an instrumental album as your first album and then adding a singer later, that's pretty ballsy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the Periphery first album that was released as an instrumental continues to be one of the most listened to records in my like current lineup, and
Yeah.
I really love their newer stuff, but that first album, it just hits different. And
It has a special place. Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, it was really to me, it like it really did put them as a band on the map, and they've done nothing but escalate since then. They've grown a lot as musicians. They've, you know, started writing songs with vocals in mind, and they've become even more melodic and orchestral, and they continue to push the limits. And that's just really fun to listen to. So I mean, is it on the level of like a Blizzard of Oz? Probably not, but I do think that if you're thinking about more modern metal, I can't think of a band that's been more influential, at least in the prog section. So
Yeah. Awesome. Good choice. Good choice.
I'm going to hit you with another question. This one's a little bit more clickbaity. Um,
I love clickbait.
so give me, Wes, in your opinion, respected, the least respected rock or metal band.
I am gonna go with Twisted Sister.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, have you ever listened to Twisted Sister? Can you name more than two songs?
Nope.
Can you
No.
name two songs?
We're not going to take it.
Right. And the other big hit single off of that album.
Oh, I Want to Rock.
Yeah, good job. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Awesome. Now that was their third album. Stay Hungry was their third
Wow.
album.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They put out
I thought that was their debut album.
new third album.
Okay.
And they put out two albums that had a bunch of songs that were as good as the songs on Stay Hungry
Okay.
before that, but they got no respect. They're the Rodney Dangerfield of early 80s metal.
Were they
right?
just too ahead of their time? I mean,
Well, kind of. And you know, so basic. Okay, so here's the thing. They started as a cover band in the early 70s in New York City in the tri-state area.
early 70s, man.
Early
Okay.
70s, right?
I didn't know that.
They started to sound like them by the late 70s. And that image that we all are familiar with, that we think of when you think of Twisted Sister, you think of that
Spandex
really
and
bigger
makeup.
than life hair, the makeup, the costumes, the real kind of, I don't want to say clowny look, but kind of a clowny look. That came in the late 80s, early 90s. We'll call it 1980. They managed themselves until 1981. And because they couldn't get their originals picked up by a label, they started their own record label. And because they wanted to make as much money as possible, they were trying to make a living as a band. They started their own t-shirt company so that they didn't have to pay somebody else for their merch. Right.
Wow.
So their debut album is called Under the Blade. The second album is called You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. They're both really good albums. But then they come along with Stay Hungry. They've got We're Not Gonna Take It. They've got I Want to Rock, and they basically invented the long short form video that became so popular on MTV, where you have a little tiny bit of a story and then the song, right? So you
Yeah.
have like the beginning of it doesn't have any music for a couple 3 minutes, and then you've got the song for the 3 or 4 minutes, and then the video's over. So the video is 7-8 minutes long, and it tells a little bit of a story. Think of probably one of the most popular or most memorable videos in that genre, Van Halen's Hot for Teacher, right? Twisted Sister invented that style of video making.
Okay.
And then they totally dominated MTV for several years with that look, you know. Let's go a couple years, because the album that came out afterwards, after Stay Hungry, their next album was called Come Out and Play, and MTV banned the video, refused to play the videos from it for some reason. But and the band then, kind of subsequently bombed. They kind of, but they're still around. I mean, one of the guys died. The drummer died, unfortunately.
Mark Mendoza.
Mark Mendoza is the bass player. AJ Peros, the drummer that passed away. That's okay. But look at it this way. Twisted Sister holds such a place with some metal folks. When AJ Pero died, Twisted Sister still had dates on the books. Mike Portnoy stepped in. At that time, the ex-drummer of Dream Theater stepped in, and he didn't. Here's the thing. He had so much respect for Twisted Sister, he played AJ Pero's parts. He didn't play like Portnoy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I dig that. You can quickly overplay Twisted Sister.
Oh, yeah, very quickly.
They keep it very simple.
Yeah, and then to kind of tack on the end of that, it was two people specifically, Frank Zappa and Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, who stood up to those assholes in the PMRC, Tipper Gore and her ilk, that wanted to ban albums, and ended up the compromise ended up being that
labeling system,
that explicit lyrics or whatever bullshit sticker that got put on so many albums back in that day, because she couldn't handle a Prince song. I mean, you take one look at Prince and his songs are going to be about sex. Like at least 6 out of 10 songs are going to be about sex. You just look at that dude with that mustache. That was a porn mustache. He had to write about sex.
All right, slow down. So
I'm sorry. I get worked up.
No, it's okay. I want you to stay on this because you just mentioned a few things. I don't know how many people know about Tipper Gore or the PMRC or what that is, or even know the origin story of that, explicit lyrics tag that you see. So, I mean, what's the, TLDR of that?
Yeah, basically just Dee Snider went in front of Congress and called them all a bunch of fucking hypocrites is what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody expected him to be eloquent. He did not show up in costume. He showed up basically in jeans and a ripped up t-shirt. I mean, he showed up dressed to rock,
but not an uneducated human being.
Yeah, no, and eloquent, well-spoken, and savage in an eloquent fashion.
So Tipper Gore, wife of then Senator Al Gore.
Yes.
Started the PMRC.
Because she couldn't handle the lyrics of a Prince song that was about masturbation.
Basically, a lot of pearl clutching.
Yeah.
Right, because lyrics were, destroying our children.
Yeah.
And they started this. It's almost like I call it the
witch hunt. I call it a witch hunt.
Got to be careful with that word these days. Think about prohibition, but for rock lyrics.
Exactly. That's a much better way to put it.
And you know how well things go when you look to completely ban things.
Yeah.
That worked out well for prohibition, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. Dee Snider was a big, not just a, anti, but he was one of the few people that stood up physically in front of Congress to say, you're all a bunch of douches, and this is why this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So that's my vote for least respected metal band, rock or metal band, Twisted Sister.
Okay. Mine's Nickelback. Next question.
No. I think that's a valid thing, because I mean, for a band that purportedly is the most hated band in North America, because they're Canadian,
mm-hmm.
They have sold an ass load of albums.
Mm-hmm.
And, sure, they've walked off stage a couple times because people were throwing stuff at them, but
so would I, to be honest.
Laughed all the way to the bank when they cashed the check for the, the show.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, right. No respect for Nickelback.
No, they definitely get no respect.
They're the Rodney Dangerfield. No, because Rodney Dangerfield Uh,
Was
you know,
talented. Oh,
that's what I was gonna say. All right, what's our next question? What's our next question?
all right. So the next question is, why is Gary Sharon the worst Van Halen singer? No, it's not. It's
What?
not. All right, no, it's not. The actual question is, who of the three, Mo, Larry, and Curly, is the worst Van Halen singer, and why? So, of course, this is your opinion.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
opinion
now
may be wrong here.
you kind of led with a little Sharon bashing. So why don't you finish that thought,
All
and
right.
then I'll give you my opinion.
Okay. So here's my honest opinion of Gary Sharon as a singer. I think Gary Sharon is the worst singer in any band he's in.
Don't 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 soft pedal it, Andrew.
I thought I like Extreme a lot. I think Extreme is a very good band, and I think he's the second best singer in that band, with Nuno being the first.
Okay.
Okay, I have heard Nuno. I have heard Nuno's side project where he sings lead, and he is a darn good lead singer.
Yeah.
I actually prefer his voice to Gary's. Okay, so I I'm not trying to be a douche here. I'm just naturally good at it. But no, I, in all fairness to Gary, I think he came around at the worst possible time, and he probably replaced the best Van Halen singer. Okay, so he had impossible shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Let's get right down to it. Like, I
Yeah.
think David Lee Roth is great. Is he a great singer? Mm, definitely good. He was good for Van Halen when he was good. Trust me, Van
Yeah.
Halen was very successful with David Lee Roth as a frontman. But arguably, Sammy, kick-ass singer, and then that falls apart. Everyone gets very upset. Boomers everywhere start selling their khakis, thinking the end times are coming. And who do they get?
Gary
Gary
Sharon.
Sharon. And look, Gary's good, but he's not Sammy Hagar good.
Yeah.
And also at this point, Eddie, great player, not writing his best material.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And
he's suffering from health issues and alcoholism. And it's not the best phase of his career.
no.
Gary had an unwinnable situation.
Yeah.
So, to fairness to Gary, I don't think he's the best singer. I also don't think he was on the best Van Halen album. Maybe, and honestly, in preparation for this episode, I went to listen to his album. A rock band that
And
put out
you
that
stand
album,
by your opinion.
well, any other rock band that put out an album would be like, that's a good album. But
Yeah.
knowing what Van Halen is capable of,
Capable.
and
Yeah.
considering their back catalog, it doesn't like it doesn't match.
Yeah.
It doesn't come up. So that's just my opinion. Now I
Yeah.
really do prefer. I don't think Extreme would be better with Nuno singing lead on everything. I do think the combination of Gary and Nuno singing together is what makes that band so darn good.
Yeah.
But just Gary's not my cup of tea, I guess.
Gotcha. Hey, no problem. Um, yeah. He was the wrong guy at the wrong time for that band,
Yeah, not his fault. Props
and
for even trying.
yeah. And how do you turn your phone rings and it's Eddie Van Halen? He says, "I want you to come sing for my band." How do you say no? How do you go, "Yeah, Ed, I'm not into that."
Wasn't busy at the time. He couldn't say Extreme was on tour or recording. That
Yeah, Extreme was definitely on hiatus at that point. I
right.
think wasn't Nuno playing with Rihanna or something by then, or was that later?
I don't
No, no,
know,
I'm
but
serious. He was.
he was, but he also had a solo thing going at the time
Yeah.
as well. And
Well, I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of crap for this in the comment section, or just people who immediately stop listening to the show and send us hateful vibes. But I think
why,
the
Wes?
worst.
Because the obvious answer is that David Lee Roth is the best singer for
No,
Van
David
Halen,
Lee
right?
Roth was the worst singer in the band. I really do think so. Now, I think he was a great frontman,
Mm,
and I think he was the perfect frontman slash singer for Van Halen
mm,
from 1977 through 1984.
mm-hmm.
I think if they'd had any other singer, they probably would have been written off as a guitar wanker band.
Okay. All
An
right.
amazing guitar player like White Lion, an amazing guitar player with a crap singer that, puts out 2 albums and disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But David Lee Roth's level of showmanship was something that we needed. And to then put his attitude and activity, his level of energy as a frontman matched Eddie's level of energy as a guitar player.
And the band as a whole.
And then, yeah, you've got the most solid rhythm section in hard rock at the time.
Yeah.
But he was and continues to be a wretched singer.
Wretched. That's such a
Wretched.
don't wretched. That's how you describe a mother-in-law, not a singer of a multi-platinum. So few people have had well, not few people, but I don't know. I don't know too many people my age that had the pleasure of seeing David Lee Roth both with Sammy and David. Have you seen them both?
I did.
Okay.
I've seen him with Sammy and David each twice.
Okay. So my opinion, the David show was electrifying.
Oh, 100%.
The
It was a way better show.
But the Sammy show was so much musically better.
Yeah.
It was just what you heard in the studio was Sammy being Sammy, and live, that man was just as good. Those were the days, man. He was just as good live. He hit everything. And I really respect, and this is before auto-tune, and I really respect how active he was. And he gave Van Halen something they desperately needed, a rhythm guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah. He played a lot of guitar live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw them on the very first tour after Sammy joined. And here's another reason why I bash on David Lee Roth, right? Because they came out
laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, this is what, 1985 or 6. I don't remember when 5150 came out, but they came out, they played a bunch of songs from the album. They played a couple of Sammy Hagar songs, including I Can't Drive 55, which was one of the biggest hits in the country when he joined Van Halen. As a matter of fact, when they announced he was joining Van Halen, I was like, what? He's so successful on his own. Why would he do that?
Yep.
Why would he
knew something you didn't.
Yeah, he knew something I didn't, right? And plus, once again, when Edward Van Halen calls you and says, I want you to be the singer in my band, the answer is, I'll be right there.
Right. Given how successful Sammy was on his own, it is actually pretty amazing how well he gelled with that band and how
so quickly, yeah,
those songs were. I mean, again, arguably not the same energy level and wildness that you had with the earlier Van Halen stuff, but there's some gems in the Sammy stuff, especially that first album, that you're just like, he really, he can't. We talked about it before. Van Halen was maturing musically.
Yeah.
Okay, they were trying to get away from that era, that David Lee Roth era, that
the wankery era.
The wankery, yeah. And Sammy just really fit. As much as I hated the fact that they were getting rid of him, because 1984 is literally one of my favorite albums of all time.
It's astounding. It's an amazing album.
Changed my life as a guitar player.
Yeah.
But you can't argue how great that first Sammy record was.
Yeah, and they came out in the show. They played new songs from that. They played Sammy songs. They played older Van Halen. They played 1984. They played they played Jump. They played the hits like you would expect them to. Right. And then you fast forward, Sammy's no longer in the band. They've reunited with David Lee Roth. Absolutely refused to play any of the Sammy era songs.
No. Do you know why?
Well,
can you imagine why?
He couldn't sing them, for one.
No.
But they had more top 40 hits with Hagar in the band than they ever did
Mhm.
with David Lee Roth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their albums sold better, their songs were more popular, they were more pervasive in the culture as Van Hagar.
Van Hagar. All
Um,
right. Want to keep going or going to move on?
no, I'm done. I'm done beating that horse. I'm waiting for the hate mail. I clearly have not
I-
been struck down by God. So
Bunch of David Lee Roth fanboys out there about to attack. All right, so I know this is a good one. You and I both have some stories to tell. I know I have a good story to tell, but I know you do too. So, question number 4 is your first actual, actual, as opposed to virtual, your first actual metal concerts. Go.
yeah, because my first concerts were just rock concerts, right? Not I didn't see a metal band until 1987, January of 1987, because my parents wouldn't let me go. And they had to take me before I had a driver's license. My dad would take me to a concert, get liquored up, and then somehow we would make it home.
So,
Um,
for context, your first metal concerts were in 1987 when you were 17.
yeah, I was 17 years old and had a
Late,
driver's license,
so late
and
bloomer.
yeah, access to a vehicle that I could drive
Okay.
to the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland, which was basically an hour from where I lived, maybe a little
Ooh,
bit more.
but once you
Um,
started going, it was like the gloves
oh,
were
is
off.
oh yeah, it was gangbusters. I saw Iron Maiden on the Somewhere on tour, supporting the Somewhere in Time album. That's the one with Wasted Years.
Mm.
Um, and Yngwie Malmsteen was their opening act. I don't know if it was
Get
Yngwie
out.
Malmsteen's Rising Force or if it was just Yngwie, if he had dispensed with the idea that anybody else got credit.
Well, do you
You know,
remember? Hold on. Do you remember any idea what songs he might have played?
no,
Okay.
I'd never heard of him.
I feel like it was 87 might have been Rising Force era, but go
It
ahead.
was definitely,
Okay.
now that I've looked back at it, right? So that was January 1987. And
Ingve opening for Iron Maiden. That's still
yeah, it was a little
that's
weird. And
but kind of holy grail. Like that's like royalty in metal.
it
Iron
kind
Maiden.
of is, you know,
It's
if you like
dope.
Yngwie. Um, I'd never heard of him,
If
so I
you
was
like
just
it.
like, you know, and I loved Iron Maiden. I still love Iron Maiden to this day. There's only one band I have seen in concert more times than Iron Maiden, and that's King's X. And the reason because I've seen them more is because they play clubs,
That's true.
not arenas.
So, I didn't ask you this before, but I kind of want to know, do you remember you said you never heard of Ingve, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
this guy comes out, and let's be honest, playing a Stratocaster, very different from metal.
Well,
Ne-
but the guys in Iron Maiden played strats.
Good point, but using humbuckers. And
True.
I know you were paying attention.
Yes.
Um, Neoclassical scales.
And I was into classical guitar at that point in my life. I
He
was
was
studying
very
classical
different.
guitar.
What was your? I mean, you have to admit, that was a new. He started a thing.
Yeah, he did. He
So
did.
what was your reaction? Like, what were you like, my God, this guy's a speed, he's amazing, or like these songs, are you kidding me? Because it's easy to bash Ingve now because he's a meme at this point, but
Yeah.
I don't know, in 1987, that was hot. Like, what were
I,
you thinking?
I didn't get it, and I loved Iron Maiden so much I wasn't interested.
Just
Um,
didn't even register.
yeah, I didn't care. I sat in my seat and waited for him to finish. And
Okay.
at the end of his set, he played the last chord, and he took his guitar off and he threw it up in the air and he caught it, and then he put it on top of his amp. And it started because he was using, this is before his deal with DiMarzio. He was using single coil pickups. It started to feedback horribly, like screeching, screaming
He
feedback.
left it on stage with the
He left it
volume
on
turned
stage
up.
with, yeah, and it just kept going and kept going. And I don't know why they left it through the front of house, but they
What
did,
what a
until
douche.
finally, mercifully, a roadie came out and turned the amp off and ended that noise. And I've never forgiven him for that. I haven't. And then
Let the,
so including that show,
let the
I
healing begin.
I saw Iron Maiden 3 times in 2 years. In 87 and 88, I saw Iron Maiden 3 times. I
Wow.
love Iron Maiden 100%.
But they
But
came around
1980,
that frequently.
yeah, in 1987, I saw a bunch of other concerts because I could. And the only other I can none of the other ones were really metal. I saw Bon Jovi, which back then, they were hair metal, but they were kind of on the lighter side of it. And Cinderella opened up for them. That was a great show. And then I saw the Rat Poison tour, which I think they co-headlined, but I
Okay.
loved Rat. And at my show that I went to, Rat played first and Poison played second, and I left after Rat.
Okay.
I've never really been a big Poison fan. Huge fan of Bret Michaels, and massive respect for Bret Michaels. And I
Really?
think Poison nailed something in the zeitgeist, but their music didn't resonate with me. Although I will tell you, the first guitar solo I ever learned end to end and could play at speed was the guitar solo in Talk Dirty to Me by Poison.
Respect.
Yeah. It's got this really cool double stop run. It was very cool.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was a big fan of the blues scales.
Yeah. And I saw them. I did sit through them when they opened up for David Lee Roth in 88 on the Skyscraper tour. And then if you don't consider any of these bands metal, I saw Metallica for the first time in 1989 on the Damaged Justice tour, where I got to
Ooh,
experience 19,000 people chanting "Die, die, die, die" in the middle of Creeping Death, which I had never heard because the only Metallica that I knew was Master of Puppets. And if you remember the story I told you, ladies and gentlemen, when I bought Master of Puppets, the album, I also bought Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry, Be Happy, and the clerk gave me a hard time about it. Right. So that was my, kind of metal experience in that I saw a lot of great concerts in 87, 88, 89.
that's cool,
But
man.
but Iron Maiden was my first. What about you? What was your first?
All right.
And are you
So
going to ramble on as long as I did?
I don't know, probably not. I have, but I can tell you, I know something that might make you a little jelly.
Ooh, hit me.
All right. So my first actual metal concert was also Iron Maiden because huge fan on the Peace of Mind tour, which was in
Oh,
1983, 84.
dude, you
Oh,
were
yeah.
like 14 or 15 years old. How did you convince your parents to let you go to that?
Mm. Okay. So here's the story. Um, Back in the day, you remember the, metal magazines, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Kerrang,
Yeah.
Cream.
Yeah, I was getting all of them. And so I had the album Peace of Mind, which my stepbrother, Michael, the middle stepbrother, was listening to. And I heard this and I was just floored.
Yeah.
This music appealed to me on a level I didn't even understand. I loved it. And and then I was getting these magazines. They're probably his, and I was leafing through them, and I saw Iron Maiden, and I'm like, these guys look cool.
Yeah,
And
with the
there's
leather.
and the giant Eddie from the
Yeah.
Number of the Beast tour. So I see this. I'm like, I have to see this band. I have to see them. I have to go. I find out that my stepbrother is going to this concert with his friends, and I find out, and I beg my parents to let me go. I beg them, and they're like, "Well, we're not taking you." I'm like, "But just please let whatever you can." So they talk to my stepbrother and they make him promise to watch me or to make sure I'm taken care of.
Yeah.
He can go, but he's your responsibility.
And let me guess, you walked through the arena door and you didn't see your brother again for 2 days.
That is correct. He went so he left me in the company of two very nice looking meth heads in the same seating area, proceeded to run off and do coke in the bathroom, and I watched my first heavy metal show. The first band that opened was a band called Coney Hatch,
Okay. Local band, I'm guessing.
famous for
Nothing.
nothing. The second there was a three band concert. It was Fastway was the second band.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Fastway. So that was the Pete Way of UFO and Fast Eddie Clark from
Motorhead.
Motorhead, and a singer of whom I don't remember his name, but they had that really good song, Say What You Will. Anyway, Fastway was good.
Was that, had they put out The World Waits for You at that point?
I do
Or
not
was
remember.
that their next album?
Do not remember.
Okay.
Too old, don't remember. But Iron Maiden came out and blew everyone away. They were amazing. They were amazing.
Dude, and they had, that was Nico's first tour.
That was his first album. That was his first tour.
Dude,
So I
I'm
only knew
super
Iron Maiden
jealous.
from the Nico era. He was incredible. And the whole band was amazing. And of course, they had the Monster Eddie came out, the Puppet Eddie, the guy on stilts.
Not the Blow Up Eddie. Blow Up Eddie is kind of weak, but
yeah, it's like
Monster
Bouncy House Eddie.
Yeah. Oh man, and I love the way Iron Maiden introduced Nico McBrain to the world, right? So his first album is Peace of Mind. Clive Bird did a great job on Number of the Beast.
He was
a great drummer. He'd have kept going with him, except he got sick.
Yep.
And they come out, and the very first song on
Where Eagles Dare,
and it starts with this amazing drum intro. It's only like 2 bars long, but it sets the tone for the whole album.
Yep,
it's just, oh, it's mind blowing.
Wicked. Yep, they were amazing. I'm telling you, they're also one of my favorite bands. But I will never forget that show, because there's like moments in my guitar life and my music life that like are like, it just, they formed a core memory and they started something. And Iron Maiden started something with that tour. I came home and I'm like, I didn't play guitar yet. After that tour, after that concert, I was a guitar player. And that's when the electric guitar thing started for me, is that concert. I will never forget that concert. It was a great time. I also got my first contact high from so, another core memory.
Before they banned smoking indoors and like, people stopped filling arenas with pod smoke.
Smell.
What is that?
Smells like
rich, earthy smell. Yeah, I've seen Iron Maiden 10 times, I think. Maybe 12. I've seen King's X 16 times. I've seen Stryper 8 times.
Yeah, you're a Stryper fan.
I am a Stryper fan.
Proudly. And they're still kicking, man.
And making new music, which is something that I am impressed by. And so is Iron Maiden. And I like that. They did a nostalgia tour where they played all the hits, but they told everybody they were doing that up front. And when Iron Maiden tours regular, they play songs from their new albums. You know, when the last time I saw them, they played half the set was songs that they had recorded since Bruce and Adrian came back to the band.
All right. Dig it.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to question 5.
Let's move on. Is it another band question?
Oh, it is. This is a little different. We're gonna have to, Wes, you're gonna have to come clean.
Okay.
Time for healing. You have to be honest with our fans. They will forgive you. They are not judging. But we need to know bands you hate to admit you like, and why.
Why do I like them, or why am I ashamed to admit that I like them?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
Because I think one is a band you may not know who they are. So have you heard of Greta Van Fleet?
Yes, I have.
Have you heard of Rival Sons?
Yes, I have.
So they are both more modern bands that get accused of being Led Zeppelin clones.
Big time,
right? So this has been an accusation that people throw at a band that is kind of unreasonably good, you know, and plays single note riffs in the box, which is really a lot of Led Zeppelin's biggest songs were single note riffs in the box.
I see where you're going with this.
or at least the songs that guitar players like, right? So back in the hair metal days, which is when I came up, I mean, my
Hmm.
musical tastes were set listening to hair metal. I'm not ashamed of that.
Right.
But there was a band that came out called Kingdom Come that
Hmm.
were excoriated for being Led Zeppelin clones.
Yep. I
And
remember.
if you plug a Telecaster into a Supro and turn it way up and play Kingdom Come songs, you can kind of see why they got that. But,
Yeah.
you know, the guitar player played a Les Paul Light. It was a weight relieved, slightly thinner Les Paul, and it had a
Oh.
really edgy sound.
Hmm.
Um, but they were full on. They were a hair metal band. But some of their songs were about, you know, witches and occult stuff, and, you know, trees, and
I get
that's
it.
the same kind of stuff that Zeppelin used to write
Yep.
songs about.
20 years
Um,
after the fact, though.
yeah, yeah. So this is in the 80s, and they put out two really great albums, one called Kingdom Come, because every band has to have an eponymous album sometime during their career, and one called In Your Face. Now, neither of these albums was groundbreaking, but they were super fun to listen to. They were
Hmm.
really well produced, good songs, good guitar, good singing, great rhythm sounds. The bass sounds monstrous.
Why can't that be enough? Right?
Yeah,
Like a band, we're always saying, like, we just want new music to listen to that's good.
yeah,
So a band comes out that's good. We're like, no, we don't mean it like that. You sound too much like Led Zeppelin. Well, but it's hard not to because, like you said, if you play single note riffs in the box, you're basically going to get accused of sounding like Led Zeppelin. But I
yeah,
get it. There's like a lot of like little things that made them sound like high pitched vocals and a little extra reverb here and there. And
yeah.
there's like, but
A
who
song about selling your soul at the crossroads.
but who but who cares? It's music, man.
Well, yeah, back then I took a lot of crap for being a Kingdom Come fan.
Oh, I see. Bands you hate to admit and why.
Yeah,
Hate to admit you like and why. That's why, because they were like, you only like them because they sound like Led Zeppelin. And you're like,
exactly.
what's wrong with
And
that?
and to be perfectly honest, I back then I wasn't the biggest Led Zeppelin fan, so I didn't really care. Right? As a matter of fact, I started listening to Led Zeppelin more because people said Kingdom Come were a Zeppelin clone, and I wanted to see if it was true.
And the first time I heard Greta Van Fleet, by the way, I immediately said, yeah, that's excessively Zeppelin-esque.
I
However,
just I just call it 70s hard rock.
who cares?
Yeah.
Zeppelin's not making new music.
Nope.
It's the closest thing we got, and their talent. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
My my, my daughter loves Greta Van Fleet. She has gone to see them twice. She likes them so much.
There you go. All that matters is people are making good sounding music, and they're less apologetic about who they sound like. To me,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, Zeppelin's not making any new music. You're getting new music that sounds like Zeppelin. How is this a bad thing?
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, Greta Van Fleet isn't a Zeppelin clone. They're a Beach Boys clone because they're made up of brothers and neighbors.
So,
Um, yeah. Now, another
nice.
band I hate to admit that I like is a band
Uh-oh.
that you'll definitely have heard of, and
Uh-oh.
that is and I got to I'm going to put a caveat in there. I
Okay.
really only like one of their albums,
Okay.
and it's a fantastic album. It's an
Okay.
album called Songs About Jane, and the band is Maroon 5.
Okay.
Yeah, and great, great guitar album. I mean,
Really?
oh, phenomenal guitar album.
Okay.
And it was before, what's their singer's name? Do you know? Can you remember?
Wait, Maroon 5, Adam Levine?
Adam Levine, thank you. It was before he turned into a caricature of
Adam
a pop
Levine.
singer. Yeah.
Oh, right.
You know, before he was dating models and back when he was actually a serious musician. He's a really good guitar player himself, or at least he was back then.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's their second album, and it's a fantastic album. I haven't liked anything else they ever did, but because of everything else they did, if I tell people I like Maroon 5, they're like, "Oh, you're an idiot."
Well, my friend.
Now it's time for you to lay yours on me. I want to laugh at you.
Well, my friend, I am going to give you. I'm going to give you some ammunition.
Give me some nightmare fodder.
All right, bands you hate to admit to like that. Wait, hold on. I'll get this out. There's been a few shots of Jack Daniels tonight. Bands you hate to admit you like and why.
Right.
Okay. Um, I went through my music collection before this episode, knowing this question was in there. And I found that I have not one, not two, but several albums by one Kelly Clarkson.
Oh no.
I went through and maybe going through a Kelly Clarkson phase. Yeah, that
Okay.
shit is happening.
Slickly produced, professionally written pop music will
Mm-hmm.
never go out of style.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna
Blaring
hold,
from the car of a 54-year-old male
yeah,
seems
maybe,
weird.
yeah. Maybe
But
don't put your windows down when you're driving through downtown though.
no, but it is strange to see me singing along with lyrics by songs called I Do Not Hook Up
Well, but that's true, you don't.
and Since You've Been Gone.
Which I have a problem with that song title because there are only two songs ever in the history of rock and pop music that should have been titled Since You've Been Gone. And one of them they should have changed the name. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the original Rainbow version, which is to me the ultimate version,
Mm-hmm.
and the version from the Outfield's third album called Voices of Babylon. And
Yeah.
I think the Outfield should have picked a different name for their song, but it is a great song.
So I want you to know that there was a toss-up. This question, the answer was a toss-up between this,
Kelly Clarkson.
yeah, Kelly Clarkson, and look, I just want you to know I'm vulnerable right now. Okay.
I
I'm
can
telling
tell.
you and I'm telling our listening audience.
I'm trying to be non-judgmental here.
Okay. I'm feeling a little verklempt, a little emotional. The other potential for this is a soundtrack from a movie
Called
Josie and the Pussycats.
Dude, that was a terrible, terrible movie
But it was
with
a
a great
banging
soundtrack album.
soundtrack featuring, do you know who sang on those songs? Kay
Tell me.
Hanley.
I don't know who that is.
You do know who Kay Hanley is.
I do.
Yeah. You probably know her from, let me find it. Kay Hanley fronted a band called Letters to Cleo.
Oh yeah, she's a great singer.
They had a massive hit that also was from a TV show.
It was something about kissing, right?
I don't remember the name of this. Here and Now is the name of the song. But I don't remember the TV show that actually featured the song, but they got famous for the song that was in a TV show. The song was called Here and Now. Letters to Cleo is the band. Kay Hanley is the singer, and her and her husband plays guitar and the songwriting. They did all the songs for this soundtrack. I
Awesome.
never saw the movie, okay, but I heard like a tidbit of a song in like the year 2001. So
Yeah.
this is before my son is born. But after my son is born, I'm listening to in the car after my son's born, 2003. We're driving around and I'm listening to bands like Dream Theater, Slipknot,
Yeah.
all the hits.
Yeah.
But I'm also listening to bands like Kelly Clarkson and Josie and the Pussycat soundtrack. And my son started really liking these songs. And this album is one of the reasons why he wanted to be a guitar player. And he used to learn these songs.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool, like, I know it's unhip to say you listen to the Josie and the Pussycats music from the motion picture soundtrack. I get that. but there's some bangers on this album. I highly
Oh, it's
recommend
a
you.
fantastic album.
It is a great album. So anyway, it was a toss up between that and this album, between Kelly and this, and I went with Kelly because I have multiple Kelly Clarkson albums in my collection, and for some reason, balloons just flew past my face. I don't know
That was
why.
Zoom telling everybody that you listen to Kelly Clarkson
I'm out, baby. All
unapologetically.
right, so that's enough admissions for one day. My
Yeah.
wife listens to this show, and she's gonna wonder who the hell she married, and I'm gonna have to say, "Baby, I
Well,
love you."
I'm going to hit you with a little piece of trivia about the Josie and the Pussycats movie, which I did watch because,
That's dope. You have a daughter, though.
yeah, it was like the old cartoon from the Archie era that was
Mm-hmm.
on TV was better than the movie. But the reason I went to see the movie is because Rosario Dawson is in it.
Thank you.
She's the bass player. And if you don't know who Rosario Dawson is, she's also Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, she's dope. Rosario
She's,
Dawson is in Kevin Smith movies and Star Wars.
yeah, she is 100% dope. And
Yeah.
frankly, it's not hard to see that she is, between her and Alan Cumming, who is a tremendous actor,
Yeah.
right? It's clear who the great actors in the movie are.
Oh, and by the way, Rosario Dawson also was phenomenal in the Punisher series on Netflix.
Oh,
Really
absolutely.
good. Really good, man. That was a great series. Way off topic, but you mentioned Rosario. I got to give her love, man. She was amazing in that.
Yeah. And yeah, great soundtrack album. I've got
All
it
right.
somewhere on CD. I don't know where.
All
I
right.
haven't listened to it in years,
All
but
right. Well, I
I've
feel
got it.
better, but you don't have any Kelly Clarkson at home, right?
No, but I grew up listening to Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond, and Barbara Streisand, and I
So
got a
did
soft
I.
spot for all of them to this day.
Dude, and you may be Jewish. If not, if not, if not by upbringing, then definitely by culture. Because I also big Barbara, Neil, and Barry fan in my house. That and Anne Murray,
Yeah.
nonstop in my
Well,
house.
Barbara Streisand just came out with a new autobiography. It's
Yeah.
970 pages long, and apparently
Mm.
she did not employ a ghostwriter.
Wow, I dig that.
Yeah, and
Mad respect for her.
she dishes some dirt. Apparently, I read about it in the newspaper.
All right, I'm gonna have to. I wonder why she was making the rounds on media. It's the book. Okay.
It's the book. Yeah.
All right.
All
So
right.
I'm
Next
gonna move
question. Let's
on.
move
Next
on.
question.
Yeah.
Now, Wes, here's a question that comes from us from um, Tim in downtown Ohio, Cleveland, I believe. He want,
Thanks for your question, Tim.
he wants to know, give me the name of a band or bands, because there could be more than one.
Yeah.
Bands you thought you'd hate, but ended up loving.
Uh, you know, so you and I throw bands at each other every now and then. Hey, you got to check this out. Hey, you got to check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have one other person that sends me bands. Hey, Wes, you got to check this out. His name is John. He
Mm-hmm.
lives in Arizona. I used to play in a proper metal band with him, a band called
Okay.
Crashlander. One
I
of my
remember
favorite bands that
Crashlander.
I was ever in, was a fantastic band. I was the bass player, believe it or not, because I just wanted to be in that band, and so he occasionally will send me a link. Hey, you got to check out this band. And every single time he does, I'm skeptical
Okay.
because he listens to stuff that I don't care for.
Okay.
But every time he sent me a link, he sent me links to 4 bands
Mm-hmm.
in the last several years, and I have loved every single one of them. But 3 of them, after listening to the first song, I was like, I don't know where this is going. I better try some more, because John really recommended these guys. The first one was Ghost,
Okay.
right? The goth metal band.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're basically the resurgence of, Kiss and Alice Cooper and Iron Maiden and everything that parents hated about heavy metal. Except these guys, the main guy in the band pretends like he's the anti-pope, and he puts in like dead eye contact. But the music is actually really good. Um, and then there's a band called Gojira, which is
Oh,
a hard metal band
yeah.
with growly vocals. And
Yeah.
I am not a growly vocals person.
I'm not either. And you'll be interested to hear my answer to this, but go ahead.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of guitar solos in Gojira songs. It's
True.
yeah, and they're French. And we're not going to get into this, but I am not I don't do anything with French culture. I don't buy French products. There's a whole story behind it. So I actually had to engage in some self-loathing.
Ooh, wait a minute. I feel a story
Yeah,
brewing
but this
here.
is this is not the time for it. We'll get
Oh
into it some other
man.
time.
Okay.
Uh Phenomenal band. They live in New York City now, so it's okay. Um and a band called Mastodon,
Oh,
which
Mastodon.
lots of guitar solos, practically a prog metal band, but
Eh.
very, I said practically, very early on, their early albums were sung primarily by the bass player and the main lead guitar player.
Mhm.
And neither one of them is a very good singer, very growly, very gruff. I much prefer their more recent material where the drummer starts singing a lot more,
Mhm.
but they're an amazing band. I mean, just amazing. And I went earlier this year, back in May, I think it was. Um, Mastodon and Gojira went on a co-headlining tour.
Hmm.
And I went to go see that. It was the first proper concert I'd been to in years. Outdoors, big arena, kind of, one of those places. And it was amazing.
Okay.
I mean, I was stunned at how good these bands are live.
Okay.
And it just cemented everything that I've been, and I recognized most of the songs. I recognized every song in Gojira's set because I have all their albums and listened to them. And I recognized almost everything in Mastodon's set. I don't have their first album. I didn't get into them until Leviathan, which may actually be their third album. And at that point, I had not listened to Hushed and Grim very much, which is their pandemic album that they put out.
Okay.
Um, so all the stuff that wasn't from the very early albums and the latest album, I recognized, and it was a great show,
Okay.
except for the opening band, whose name I can't remember. They were just horrible.
So I got a weird one for this.
Hit me.
Yeah, so I struggled a little bit with this one because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if there's any bands I thought I'd hate because I try to go into things with an open mind.
Yeah.
Honestly, but there's two bands specifically that I guess came up when I thought about bands that I thought right away, I'm not going to like this. One of them is a band called Avatar,
Oh
and
yeah, you sent me a
I
link to the.
recently, yep,
They're
Hail the
kind of
Apocalypse.
ghosty.
Yeah, and makeup, a
Yeah.
gimmicky. It's a gimmick.
Yeah.
And my initial thought when I see a band these days with
With a
makeup is
gimmick.
like,
Yeah. Why bother?
right, no,
But
they
they're
are,
good.
and growly vocals, which I
Yeah.
typically don't like, but now that I'm opening my mind a little bit more to them, Periphery's got a lot of them, and I
Yeah.
respect it. Avatar also, I really do feel like the lead singer Johannes from Avatar has the best metal growl these days. And my son, so it's my son that turned me on to this band. He found them. Now, it wasn't because it was my son that I thought I wouldn't like them. It was just because the way he described them, I thought in my head, I'm not going to like them.
Right.
And from
Yeah.
the
Great
first,
suggestion, kid.
yeah, from the first couple notes, it's Hail the Apocalypse he turned me on to. That's the album. From the first notes, I was hooked. And then I watched the video. I shared the video with you. The video
It's
is
hilarious.
amazing. Yeah. And as great as that album is, their second, the one after that, it's not their second album. It's the one after that, Feathers and Flesh.
Yeah.
Amazing album, concept album. They actually recorded it with, I forget the name of the producer that did the work with Tools, Sylvia Massey. They did Feathers and Flesh with Sylvia Massey. It is
Cool.
incredible. So that's a band I thought I would not like this band. I'm not into this type of music,
Yeah.
that, and they are unbelievable. I really like them. Um, I'm still trying to think if there's another band that kind of fits that. Um, I will say not so much a band in general, but do you remember a guitar player by the name of Eric Johnson?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay. So I first heard of Eric Johnson when Cliffs of Dover came out.
Like literally every other guitar player on earth.
Yeah. It is probably my least favorite song that's ever been recorded in the history of music. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it. I think the
Mm.
playing's great, but it just, there's something I don't like. So I never gave Eric Johnson a listen because I didn't like that song. And I thought, well, if that's what his music is like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I forget. And then I saw him on a G3 tour,
I saw
and
that same tour.
yeah, so him, Satch, and Vi, and every song besides that song
You loved.
I loved. I was like, oh my God, why have I not? So I went back and found Venus Isle.
Yeah,
And
great
Venus
album.
Isle may be my one of my top 10 albums of all time.
Yeah. And
I
on that,
can't believe I deprived myself of this record for so many years because of one song.
yeah,
Very
but
stupid
that's how
decision.
it goes, man. I mean, you hear something that doesn't do anything for you, and you kind of give up on that band or that act, and
Yeah,
it's something, it takes something like that to come back to you.
I
He
truly love that album, and but it's one of the few, like, it's perfect from start to finish, and I don't
Yeah.
think there's another album in his catalog that I think I like as much as that one. It's so, I didn't want to say band I thought I'd hate, but certainly I thought I'd hate Eric Johnson until I heard those songs on G3, and I thought, wow,
Any
this
other
guy,
song.
every other song was just amazing. I couldn't believe, and I really thought, given the stripped down lineup he went with, because when he toured with G3, three piece,
Yeah.
Venus Isle is a big record. He
Yeah, it
really,
is.
yeah, it really is a big record. There's a lot of production. I think he did those songs amazing justice on that tour with the stripped down. I can only imagine how great they'd be with the larger lineup. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, that's one of my favorite albums. I'm glad you like it too, because that is such a great record,
It
man.
really
And he
is.
sings on it. And I don't
Yeah.
and he doesn't have the greatest voice. And he's certainly not like a Sammy Hagar, but it's such a great record, man.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to Venus Isle, kids, go listen to that record. It really is amazing.
Yeah. What's our next question, Andrew?
Wes, this is a simple one.
Okay.
Remastered releases, yes or no?
Uh with the sole exception of Rush's later kind of late middle catalog, no. The Rush had like two or three albums that had to be remastered to
Ooh,
continue to protect the universe because they were mastered so poorly that basically Rush should have disavowed their existence. But luckily they were terrible, Andrew, and I think nobody will argue with me. I'm not wrong.
they were
Tell me
bad.
I'm wrong. They were terrible. Um,
Unbelievable.
other than that, stop messing with your albums. Stop messing with the mastering. Leave the dynamics in. Your album does not need to be louder just because it's 2023. It doesn't. Stop it.
Stop. Just stop.
If you're not remixing, all you're doing is making it louder and getting rid of the dynamics. So stop it.
Stop it.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay.
Those Rush albums were garbage.
They were. And the remastered version of Vapor Trails is actually really good.
Yeah, that another topic for another day, but
Yeah.
Vapor Trails hit when the Loudness Wars were beginning,
Yeah.
and they destroyed that record in the mastering process, and whoever did that should be ashamed of themselves. Okay.
Yeah. Vapor Trails is to the Loudness Wars what the Battle of the Somme was to World War One. Go look that up.
Educate yourselves.
Next question.
Best rock cover of a pop song.
Oh, that's actually really easy. Dweezil Zappa and his brother Ahmet did a version of Hit Me Baby One More Time that is
Yes.
absolutely 100% phenomenal. It's the best cover of a pop song, rock cover of a pop song I've ever heard in my entire life.
It is, that is by and large one of the greatest covers, period, I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No argument for me. That is really good.
It's a travesty that that version didn't go to number one.
Yeah.
It's that good.
So I can't beat that, but I will tell you that there is an album called Bowling for Soup is the band.
I remember that band.
Yep.
I remember the band name.
Yep. And they have a great song out recently called Getting Old Sucks. Let me just tell you, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's what did we write the lyrics for that?
Exactly. Getting Old Sucks, but everybody's doing it is the chorus. So Bowling for Soup is the band. Goes to the Movies is the album, and it's an album of covers. And on this album, they do Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Oh, they do?
Not as good as the Dweezil version, I will give you that, but they do a killer version of I Melt With You by Bad English. Really good. And they also do a great version of Sick of Myself, which is a Matthew Sweet song.
Sweet, yeah.
And Matthew
What's that
Sweet
album called again?
Dope. It's called Bowling for Soup Goes to the Movies.
Bowling for Soup Goes to the Movies.
Yeah.
I don't see that in their discography.
It's in there, Goes to the Movies. It's really good. So yeah, Sick of Myself is great. And their version of I Melt With You is fantastic. They have to give them credit. They did a great job with both of those.
Yeah.
And they also do the
is.
Jimmy Neutron theme. So just for that alone, they get cred.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of covers albums.
Me neither.
You know, it's not my favorite thing. Oh, they do Undertow. How do you oh, wait a minute. I don't think that's it can't be the Tool version. The names of the writers are none of the right people.
Right. It's not. Also, I have to give credit where credit is due when it comes to cover songs, because Van Halen's Dancing in the Streets may be my favorite cover of all time.
Oh yeah, Van Halen wasn't the Diver Down album like mostly covers?
It was a lot of covers. Yeah, we
Dancing
talked about
Pretty Woman, Dancing in the Street.
Actually, another great cover they did was on their second album. Their first album had a cover on it, You Really Got Me, which is a Kinks song.
Yeah.
Their second album had a cover on it, which is
also a Kinks song.
You're No Good.
Oh, that's right.
Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah.
So they were not a stranger to covers, but Diver Down was a lot of covers.
Yeah, one of the Where Have All the Good Times Gone? How'd you get the thumbs up? What is going on? I mean, you earned it, but Where Have All the Good Times Gone is another Kinks song they did.
Yeah, that's right. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? Another good cover.
And what I really liked about their covers, especially the two Kinks songs, is they were 100% recognizable, but they were 100% Van Halen.
Thank you. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
A great song is a great song. And they took a great song and made it a great song without playing it exactly the same.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
Short story about that Kinks cover. My first band ever, referenced in a previous episode.
Yeah.
That featured my incredibly beautiful and sexy and smart wife. She was in that band. If you're listening, I love you. We played a cover of You Really Got Me. And despite her presence on stage, it was hot garbage. I'm just saying. My first band was not good, including my performance. I was terrible back then, but I've gotten moderately better since then, a little bit.
Dude, Big Bad Bill is Sweet William Now is a cover.
Also a cover featuring Van Halen's
featuring their father on clarinet.
Yep,
I had no idea that was a cover.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Written in 1924, although that's not terribly surprising.
Yeah.
Recorded by, let's see, Peggy Lee, Merle Haggard, Ry Cooder, Leon Redbone.
Yep.
I love Leon Redbone. Have you ever heard of Leon Redbone? He used to be on Saturday Night Live. He's like the original Americana guy. And he's got this really like heavy drippy, sweet baritone. He's such an he's when I've had a bad day and I feel overwhelmed, I come home and I put on Leon Redbone albums because
Really?
his voice makes me happy. It
Oh
like
man.
triggers those happy chemicals in my brain. Not the ones that make you go out and do dumb shit. I mean, like the ones that make you feel peaceful and
Oh.
content.
All right. I'm gonna have to find some Leon Redbone.
Oh, dude, his stuff is so
All right.
good.
When I've had a bad day, it's I come home and I watch the Great British Bake Off, but we're different people. So
All right, what's the next question?
okay,
No, wait, did
so
you answer that question?
best rock cover?
Best
Yeah.
rock cover. Yeah, Bowling for Soup.
Which oh now on this last one, I admit this one's gonna spark something.
This is
Which
almost a hot
aging,
take.
yeah, which aging metal band should wrap it up? Hang it up.
Uh okay, so I got to go general and I got to go specific.
Okay.
In general, I think any band who hasn't put out a new album in the last 10 years should stop touring. I don't
Okay.
care what genre they're in, specifically
So
metal, Kiss and Motley Crue. Stop it, go home, quit inflicting us with whatever the hell that is going on stage. Now, I will say that Kiss still has it.
really,
I've seen recent live videos of Kiss concerts and they still got it. Motley Crue sucks
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Now, John Five, great guitar player.
yeah.
Everything else in that band is either pre-recorded or hot garbage.
Dude, hiring John Five to replace Mick Mars is like, hey, my Yugo's in the shop. Can I borrow a Ferrari
Yeah.
for a few
It's like
weeks?
it's like putting the engine from a Ferrari into your Volkswagen Bug.
And he's like super politically correct about it. He's like, it's a great opportunity. I'm trying to be respectful to the music. John Five is such a phenomenal guitar player, but him and Motley Crue is such a waste of okay. Sorry for anyone who
Yeah.
likes John Five and Motley Crue. So you don't like the whole like I'm not putting out any new albums, but every couple of years I'm going out for the We Need More Money tour.
Oh, the nostalgia tours have got to stop, man. They really do. They have got to stop.
Hmm. Okay.
And I'm talking Styx, REO Speedwagon, Chicago. They're three of the biggest offenders, not metal bands, but I mean, come on. I mean, REO Speedwagon isn't even good anymore.
All right, but this does say aging metal band, and last time I checked, REO Speedwagon is so far from metal.
Yeah.
But you
But
just in general, the nostalgia tour is just
yeah, and especially with metal. You know who nailed it? Slayer. They put out their last album and they said we're going to do one more tour and then we're hanging it up.
because Slayer is good people.
Yeah. And that's all the bands should have the guts to do that. Now, the only band that
So
gets a pass
mhm.
is the Rolling Stones because they just put out a new album so they can go on another tour.
They can tour, they can because they need the money.
Yeah, at this point, I think, they're just I think the Rolling Stones at this point are just touring for fun. I think they genuinely want to do it.
So I have a different take on this, and I know,
You do.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to make some people very happy with this, but um, kind of feel like it might be time for Dream Theater to hang it up.
Dude, they just got Mike Portnoy back. How can they
I
quit
know,
now?
I know. I'll tell you why. Um, so when things were getting rough with Mike, I think they put out a couple of their worst albums.
Yeah.
I think Black Clouds and Silver Linings is garbage. That's their last album with Mike Portnoy. When they got Mike Mangini, when they got Mike
Little shot.
Mangini,
Little
yeah.
shot.
So the first album with Mike was actually already written before he joined.
Right.
So all Mike did, Mike Mangini, I know I got to keep, all Mangini did was make his
Play the
drum
parts.
parts fit. Like,
Yeah.
okay. The second album with Mangini was written with him, and it is, in my humble opinion, the greatest Dream Theater album to ever grace the earth.
What's that album called?
It is eponymous. It is just Dream
Oh,
Theater.
it's Dream Theater.
Yeah.
See, a lot of bands do that when they quote reinvent themselves. They put out an eponymous album.
Yeah. No disrespect to Portnoy, one of the greatest drummers to walk this earth.
100%,
But I
absolutely.
love, and you know, I'm always the kind of guy that like I like the early stuff. The later stuff is like, eh. Dream Theater, when they reinvented themselves with Mangini, that second album is unbelievable. It is so good.
Yeah,
But everything they did after that with Mangini, again, in my opinion, has been lackluster.
yeah,
And to me, it's either one of two things. Either the gas is out of the tank completely, or they're uninspired. So either this next album with Mike Portnoy needs to be as
amazing.
good or better than that second album with Mangini, or it's time to hang it up.
Gotcha. Okay,
Okay.
I can see that. Yeah, and I haven't heard that album with Mangini. I've got Distance Over Time, which I think is a fantastic album,
Yikes. Not a
but
fan.
I'm not invested.
Another band I think should hang it up, may want to, may consider just going home, relaxing, chilling, maxing, relaxing, all cool. Metallica.
Uh, uh hmm. They still put on a good show.
Do they though?
I mean, from the live, I watch a lot of YouTube, and from the videos I've seen, they're still killing it. Of course, they're only going to put up the best ones. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
James Hetfield seems to have lost a little of his zip, a little bit of his range, but you know, they still play when they play the old stuff, they play it at speed and they don't down tune.
I don't know. I don't get the same vibe when I watch that. I I don't know. There's something about watching Metallica now that just doesn't make me feel
Excited.
what I used to feel.
Yeah. I ain't buying a
And
ticket, but you know.
I mean, I haven't heard a good Metallica. I've listened to Metallica albums, and I don't think I've heard a good song since the Black Album. I'm just not a fan
Mm,
of what they're doing.
I don't know that you're wrong.
I think I think they hit their peak with Master of Puppets. I think And Justice for All was a travesty because I
Yeah.
couldn't hear their bass player. I think the Black Album was a good album because of their producer. And I think since then, they've been putting out the same record ever since, just watered down versions of it.
Well,
And
I mean, AC/DC's been putting out the same album for their whole career and they're doing all right.
they absolutely should have hung it up a long time ago.
Yeah, it ain't the same without Malcolm.
Nope. It's just
And
not. That's another band that
Brian Johnson's voice is shot.
just stop. You just that, you know what? Metallica, I give you a free pass because AC/DC should have stopped. At this point, their children are touring with them or their family members.
Yeah,
Like,
isn't that something?
just to limp it along. It's like, what can you guys just, there is something to be said for just like, we did a great job for 100 years. Like, we changed the face of rock and roll
And bow out.
and just bow out gracefully.
Yeah.
Your fans will understand. They'll be okay with it. The Slayer fans, they weren't like, how dare you do this to us? I
Uh,
respect what Slayer did.
uh, they kind of were. But, you know,
You're
what are you
blowing
going
up
to
my
do?
spot.
The band said, "We're not touring anymore. This is it. Come see us now if you want to see us. We're done."
Oh, do you think in a couple of years they'll be like Slayers, like Elton John now? They'll be like, we're coming back.
I don't think so, right? Because
They're
Tom
really
Araya was
done.
very clear that he was done touring.
I'd be interested to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, he I think I remember, if I remember correctly, he said something about missing his children growing up, and he wasn't going to miss anything else.
Yeah, but to be fair, if you've missed their growing up, it's too late.
What's the point? Yeah, I don't know.
Just why stop now? All right.
Um, all right, so
Um,
we got some more, we got a few more questions, but let's do them
all right.
rapid fire style.
All right.
No
Wes.
no pontificating. Start there with the big five.
All right. Wes, if the metal had the big five So the big four: Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. If metal had the big five, who's number five?
Testament.
Testament.
Testament with Alex Skolnick, 100%.
Okay. Favorite metal accessory
Wait.
store?
What about you? Big five.
Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden wasn't a thrash band.
It has to be thrash.
That's what the big four are: Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, thrash bands.
Oh, come on. I don't know enough thrash bands.
Okay,
I
you
don't
can
like
pass.
Testament.
I'll allow you to pass.
I don't like Testament.
That's okay. What about Exodus?
I don't like Exodus.
Okay, then you can pass.
All right, I pass. Favorite metal accessory store of the 1980s?
See, I got to pass because I never went to any of those places.
All right, so
I spent all
Spencer,
my money on concert tickets and
in
record
the
albums.
80s, it was Spencer Gifts, back when they
Yeah.
used to have those things.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was another one that I used to really get into. Okay, most influential guitar player of the two, Yngwie Malmsteen or Randy Rhoads? Influential.
So we're going to take out overplaying in terrible tone.
There's no editorializing here.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Randy Rhoads.
Most influential.
Randy Rhoads.
Can't. Okay, I agree. All right. Lamest drum tone.
Metallica, Saint Anger.
Ooh, no argument for me.
Yeah.
Wes, is Van Halen metal?
No, Van Halen is hard rock.
No argument. Live music, more songs or more / longer solos?
Irrespective of genre, I would rather hear more songs.
Bingo. Loudest concert you've ever attended?
Loudest concert I ever saw was at the old 930 Club, which will mean something to anybody that grew up in Washington, D.C. in the 80s and 90s. It was a band called Sugar, which was what came out of Husker Du. It was Bob Mould's band after Husker Du. And he came out on stage. He was playing a JCM 900 with a Strat. And he came out on stage, and it's the first person I ever witnessed in person diamond amp by running their hands along all of the knobs. He turned it, hit it 1, 2, 3, 4, and they launched into their set. It was, it was before I used earplugs. I couldn't hear anything for 3 days.
All right. My loudest concert was an outdoor concert. It was Lollapalooza, and it was when Fishbone played, and I have never heard anything that loud. It was almost like they just didn't understand at the soundboard what the volume control was. And that was outdoor. Okay. Sickest bass / drum solo. What is a bass / drum solo? It's either bass or drum.
Is it bass or drums, or is it bass and drums?
Let's call it sickest bass or drum solo. Sickest, or no, not solo. Sickest bass / drum intro.
Either way, I got Iron Maiden, right? If it's bass and drums, it's Wrathchild. And if it's just drums, it's Where Eagles Dare.
Can't argue. Not enough time. Worst hair in rock.
Flock of Seagulls. The guy, the lead singer from Flock of Seagulls.
Have you seen Tony Franklin's hair?
Yeah, he's got pretty bad hair.
How many more? Sorry, Tony. How many Marshall stacks is too many?
I don't understand the question.
Thank you. And that's it. You're done.
Woohoo! That was fun. We'll have to do that again sometime.
Oh man, I love this episode, and it's not just because I've been drinking heavily ever since it started.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we want to hear your opinions, your ideas, your comments. Answer any and all of the questions that you heard in this episode down below in the comments. If you're on the YouTube, you can send us an email. Visit, what's the website, Andrew?
That would be www.differentstringspodcast.com.
Zing. And send us a message, and we want to hear from you, and tell us how we're wrong, and tell us how we're right too. We need some validation from time to time. I'd like to hear from somebody who thinks Yngwie Malmsteen is more influential than Randy Rhoads. And you can't say it's just because he's still alive.
Oh man, too soon.
Oh, too soon.
His mom's out there.
Face it, Randy Rhoads is the only guy that ever played for Ozzy Osbourne that didn't get ripped off.
All right, that's a
And
fair point.
he got killed.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
I know, too soon. You can edit that out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us on episode 15, the grab bag, the different strings potpourri, if you will. We will be back again soon, not just with another episode of Music That Matters, but with another long form, rapid fire episode on a topic that matters to us pretty much is what we go with. And we hope that it matters to you too. So for that, and I'm so grateful for your ear holes and the time that you allow us to talk into them. And take it easy. Hope you have a good week and weekend and day, night, whatever.
Peace.
Oh, look, more balloons.
What is Zoom doing to me?
I have no idea, dude, but it's so funny every time.
Dude, now I don't want it to stop.